So, well, it's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out today.
Thank you. I appreciate you doing this.
You bet. So, before we get into your life as a writer, I want to know right now, we're looking at the 4-year anniversary of the pandemic. Around this time, we were all trying to wrap our heads around it. How did you survive the pandemic and how did it change you?
Well, I was very lucky here in Florida. Our pandemic lasted about a month. That's when everything was, you couldn't go out. You had to, restaurant seating was either outside or separated. But then within a month, everything went back to normal. So I never really had that true pandemic experience other than when I went to visit my daughter at school. I went to visit my in-laws in New York. But what I did get out of it actually is a little bit about the beginning of my writing. That was the month when everything just kind of transformed for me. So that was my COVID experience. But
Okay.
yeah, I never really got that big old, I mean, everybody in Florida was just kind of chill about the whole thing.
Yeah, that's what I hear. Yeah, there was really no lockdown or anything while the rest of the world was spittering and sputtering and going through it. Um, so let me ask you this. If I put you in front of a bunch of third graders at career day right now, and one of the kids says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child in 2024?
I would tell that child that I take stories that are in my head and I put them down on paper for other people to read. And hopefully the people who read them get something out of them.
So what did you want to be in the third grade?
I wanted to be a columnist.
Okay.
Like Ann Landers.
Yeah.
I used to read it all the time. Even back then, I remember that was this what we did. We read the back of the cereal box and you read the newspaper. So I read Ann Landers, and I was a big sports fan. So probably around fifth grade, I was a big baseball fan. And there was a columnist, Mike Lupica, and he had a column in the back of the Daily News, I think it was.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, I just want to be a columnist. That's what I want to do. Every day I want to write about something. So I just kind of tucked that away. And then I never really thought about writing a book, but I always just, everything appeals to me. And I just have a little story that I tuck back in there somewhere.
So, but your genre is romance with a twist. So you're kind of doing the Ann Landers thing. You're kind of doing that romance column kind of thing.
A little bit. Yeah. I took my character, she's a little bit older in life, and she's been through some things. And I kind of want to take her experiences and let other people know, or maybe they can identify and say, "Ooh, yes, that's me." And oh, I see how she solved that. So yeah, it is a little bit like that, which I kind of like that part of it. I guess like
Yeah.
giving advice.
Yeah, for sure. So, how did this happen? Take me back to where you were born and raised and how these seeds of being a writer and specifically what you're doing with romance with a twist. How did all of these seeds become who you are today?
So back, I grew up, I was a latchkey child, which means second grade. When you're 8 years old, my mom went to go back to work and I would walk home from school, let myself in. I don't think I was home more than half an hour, but it was just, I got used to being alone. And then when you're alone, you have your own thoughts in your head. And I used to read all the time. There wasn't really a lot on TV back then, so it wasn't like I would just come home and sit in front of the TV and veg. So I did my homework. I just really had a lot of time to think. I was a quiet. My parents would not say I was shy, but everybody else would say I was shy. And I just had a lot in my head just going on. I would love watching movies and seeing how stories unfold. I used to love to read Agatha Christie novels and just watch her weave her little magic through and it's like, oh, I love how this works. And I just always wanted to be a writer, but I never really did anything with it. It was always, oh yeah, yeah, one day I'll just write a book and that'll be that.
Yeah.
So I went, met high school, married, well, not married. I met my future husband in high school, went to school, college locally together. I was a psychology major, which kind of fits in a little bit with all this stuff. I'm like, oh, I'll be a psychologist. I like to help people. Then when it came time to choose graduate school or get married, I decided to get married. And that's when I did the whole, you know, corporate job, this job, stay at home mom. Now I'm bored. Let me try this, let me try that. But writing just never kind of fit into the whole thing. And now that I'm an empty nester, I'm like, I'm just going to write it. I'm just going to pick something out of my box of ideas and just write it. And the story behind this one actually was based a little bit on a little true event. My husband and I were out at dinner, just the two of us. This was probably about 2017 or so a while ago.
Hmm.
And he started having chest discomfort. And so much so that for somebody that never ever wants to go to the doctor says, I think I need to go to the emergency room. Now I'm we're in our around 50 then. So I'm like, okay, we're still not at that age where this should be anything too alarming. But on the way to the hospital, he turns to me, he says, if something ever happens to me, I want you to go on with your life. I don't want you just to mourn and be like a sad person. And thank goodness he's fine. And it took a couple of days to figure out it really wasn't anything too bad that he couldn't keep under control. But that experience just really hit me that that's going to come a time when that might be a reality for me. And
Yeah.
it's a reality for a lot of people. My very best friend was a widow at 36. And I wanted to kind of take a few things from that experience, from her experience, and just write a book based on that with real people that have real issues and how they get through it.
So who's been a hero and inspiration for you in your life?
Well, my friend, my very good friend Gila, who I based Claudia, who's one of the main characters on, she's got to be the strongest, toughest person I ever met. She was born in Iran, grew up in London, went to school in New York, got married to the love of her life, and within, I think it was 4 years, he passed away within 2 months from cancer. And just to see her pick up her life, raise her girls by herself, dedicate. She worked to keep everything just together. And she always just seems like she's got it all together. So she's definitely one of my heroes.
So if you can meet one person alive on the planet right now that you find fascinating, who would that be? Who would you love to meet and talk to?
Good one. Ooh, there's so many. Um, wow, there's so many people that make me laugh. That I would just like to just sit. Actually, I think I really would like to meet was Kevin Hart. Just
Yeah,
a weird thing, but he just every video I see him, he just makes me laugh, and I love
yeah,
laughing. I think
yeah.
more people need to laugh. So I would love to
Absolutely.
sit down with him for a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, he would be good. So you had mentioned you're a big sports fan. If you could go back in time and see one game with your own eyes, where are you going?
I would think Don Larson's perfect game in the World Series.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
must have been the most amazing. I might have to get goosebumps thinking about it. And I've seen some
Yeah.
pretty good games. Um, that would be a good one.
But and that's one of those records that I don't think anybody's ever duplicated and may not ever duplicate. I mean, yeah, I mean you look at baseball being marred by all these scandals and controversies. I don't know that one would touch that, you know. And that
Just the way they've changed everything too now. It's not baseball that I knew growing up.
that's the weird thing. They're pulling people out when they have a no-hitter. What are you doing?
Would never ever happen.
Are you kidding me? Just like let the guy finish it. And they're talking about these tandem no-hitters. What a punch to the stomach to think that you could, I mean, you got a no-hitter. Just your arm's going to be okay. Stay out
Yeah,
a couple extra days if you need to. Yeah, it's really weird. And I find myself being a lifelong baseball fan, being at the park and seeing all those clocks around the stadium now. It's just weird.
it is. And the rules and I mean I grew up, I was a rabid fan. We had season tickets to the Yankees and we went all the time and I could tell you who was what and what their stats were and I just knew everything about what's going on. And then when we moved to Florida, I kind of lost touch of it because nobody here is a big Yankee fan, let alone a baseball fan. So
Yeah,
just but then to see all these changes about like starting from second base
I
for extra
know.
innings, like what is that?
I know. Now we see why the players held out so long a few years ago. You
Yep,
know,
they
it's
were
just,
right.
yeah, it's wild. So, what is your motivation every day to wake up, to write the stories, to evolve as a human being? What is your motivation every day?
I just really enjoy it. Like when the people say is, or, and I'm gonna find this a little bit later in life, but people that live their passion. I've never really lived my passion. Like I loved raising my daughters and I love this job and I love that job, but they were never like jump out of bed work experiences where I just want to be at work and do it. And when I'm in my little writing bubble, everything I hear, see, whatever, I'm just driving along and I'm, oh, that would be a great line. Oh, I love the idea of that. And just, I might wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning with ideas.
Yeah,
And just to have that passion about something, it's just the most, I say it makes my soul sing. That's the best way I can describe it. It just makes me so happy about being alive and I'm happy and I hopefully spread that to other people and
yeah,
smile and it kind of cross over into everything else that you do.
yeah. So, what's your favorite fan letter so far?
You know what it was? A friend of mine read my book and we met up and we were casual acquaintances. And she's going through a divorce actually. And we met up for dinner one time. She wanted me to sign her book. I was like, oh, that's nice. And then she says, I read it like 3 times. I'm like, what? She says, I read your book 3 times. I can't not read it because it gives me hope that
Wow.
everything's going to be okay.
That's great.
Oh,
Yeah.
so
So
that was,
that that is great. So what was the first story that you ever wrote where you're like, I have a talent to write. This makes sense to me.
it really wasn't all through schools, I would, write essays or creative stories, and all the teachers be like, A plus, this is great, da 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 da. I won a writing contest, I run this and all that. I get to work and people like, oh, hey, could you rewrite this for me? You write better, or hey, could you do this? I just always, there wasn't one story, it was just all along I kept getting validation from people that, oh, this really is good, or oh, I do like that, or something. And I just decided I was going to really write this more for me. I didn't
Yeah.
really know. I mean, in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, well, I want to be on Oprah and Reese's book club and all that stuff. I want it to be a movie, but I really wrote it for me just to see. And then I have quite nice reviews on Amazon,
Yeah.
and I just like to read what people write back about it. Just makes me feel good that they're getting what I'm putting out there.
So as a writer, what's been the best advice that you've ever gotten?
Is if somebody tells you something, either as a critique or a suggestion about your writing, oh, gee, I think, Kate should have been younger or older, or it should have been in, like a cruise to Alaska, not where it was. My advice, my mentor at the time said, take that advice, let it rattle around a little bit. If it resonates with you, then go ahead and change it. But don't start changing things just because this one suggested that. Oh, I got to change this. Oh, I got to add that. Just let it resonate with you. And if it doesn't, just find your thick skin and be like, gee, thanks, but I'm good. And same thing for reviews. If somebody left a review and it's like, oh, it really wasn't much for me. I'm not into romance. I'm like, okay, well, they're not into romance, so it doesn't bother me. So just that whole let it resonate. If it doesn't, let it go.
So you're in a position of creating characters and worlds that don't necessarily exist but are real to people. What's your favorite character? What's the best character that has ever been created that you've always admired?
I loved um Sweet Home Alabama, Reese Witherspoon's character, where
Yeah.
she was born in the South, wanted to forget her past, move on, but then when she was pulled back to her past for just that odd reason of having to get her ex-husband or soon to be ex-husband to sign those papers, just how she melded back into that. And you could see her fight it, but then you could see her love it, and you could see her fight it, and you could see her love it. But then in the end, she just gave in to who she was.
Yeah.
She wasn't trying to be somebody she wasn't.
Yeah.
Melanie is my favorites.
Yeah. So of all of the things that you've done in your life, what are you the proudest of?
My kids.
Yeah.
Two beautiful girls that they're sunshine, they're smart, they're tenacious, they're sweet, they're just I'm most proud of creating those two.
So of everyone out there sees you in a certain light, family, friends, fans, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think I'm somebody who's just about on the way to finding themselves. There's part of me that I kept hidden for a long time that I didn't want people to know about. Even like, some of this writing is when like my mother-in-law's neighbor is going to read it, I cringe because there's a couple of things there and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know Lorraine thought like that. But I think what my perception of me is I'm unfolding constantly. Each day I see a new facet of myself that where somebody will say, oh, that's not like you to say that, or that's not like you, or whatever. And I like the way I'm going. So I just feel that I'm a work in progress and now I'm picking up some steam.
So if anyone wants to get your books, they want to reach out, send you a letter, learn more about you, anything about your world, where do they go?
Sure. So I have my own website. So it's Lorraine not that, sorry, back up, LorraineCover.com. And then my book, Life After Love, is on Amazon, so you can find it there. And that's probably the easiest way to find me, because either
Okay.
through Amazon or through my website, you can get a message to me or about my book or see what else is new, what's coming.
Excellent. Well, it's so good you found your passion after all these years. Good luck.
It's
More
good. Thank
power
you.
to you. Keep doing the good work.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for your
It's
time.
fun.
Take
Okay.
care. Thanks.
Take care.
See
Bye.
ya.